Hello everyone, welcome to today's program. In 2026, amid a wave of high-ranking generals mysteriously disappearing and Xi Jinping locked in fierce internal battles with the military leadership, Zhongnanhai issued something unprecedented, a seemingly tender marriage encouragement directive. 6 major departments joined forces to essentially arrange wives for troops stationed in remote and harsh border regions. Is this truly a compassionate benefit under Xi's strong army ideology, or is it a strategic entrapment echoing across 75 years? In an era where AI-driven warfare is already reality, why is the CCP so obsessively clinging to the most primitive form of womb stabilization? From the 8,000 Hunan women deceived into heading to the Tianshan Mountains in 1951, to modern women now being treated as emotional hostages, from Wang Zhen's infamous line about burying bones at the foot of the Tianshan, to Xi Jinping's approach of using wives to retain men. History isn't just rhyming here, it's bleeding. Today, let's peel back layer by layer this sugar-coated strong army policy and examine how, in the eyes of an authoritarian regime, women are commodified as strategic assets to stabilize military morale, and what underlying demographic collapse crisis drives this sacrificial offering of bodies. If you're interested in this topic, please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell icon, and select all notifications so you don't miss future episodes. While Xi Jinping and top military brass are engaged in brutal infighting, on February 23rd, the Central Military Commission's Political Work Department, Logistics Support Department, and National Defense Mobilization Department, together with the All China Federation of Trade Unions, the Communist Youth League Central Committee, and the All China Women's Federation, unusually collaborated to issue a document titled Opinions on Effectively Carrying Out Marriage and Dating Services for Officers and Soldiers in Remote and Harsh Areas and Older Unmarried Personnel. The PLA Daily featured this on its front page, framing it as a practical measure to implement Xi Jinping's strong army thought through heartwarming benefits for soldiers, including matchmaking platforms, marriage counseling, and family support services to help troops focus single-mindedly on the cause of army building. But doesn't this strike you as profoundly strange? In an age of drone swarms, AI computations, and high-tech confrontation, why is the top leadership so fixated on finding wives for older, unmarried soldiers in remote hardship posts? Is this mere welfare, or yet another strategic hunt targeting women? On the surface, the document presents the state as a benevolent matchmaker, but look closely at the key phrases: remote and harsh regions, older unmarried officers and soldiers, organizational guarantees. And the cold logic seeps through the lines. It mirrors almost exactly the population engineering scheme the CCP ran in Xinjiang 75 years ago. Let's rewind the clock 75 years. In 1951, at Changsha railway station, around 1,000 teenage girls from Hunan, mostly 17 or 18 years old, boarded westbound green trains under false propaganda promising defend the homeland and build the frontier, plow fields without oxen, and travel by car. Full of patriotic zeal, they sang March Forward following Mao Zedong repeatedly on the journey. But upon arriving in Dihua, now Urumqi, after grueling travel through Lanzhou, Jiuquan, and Yangguan Xinjiang Military Region Commander Wang Zhen doused them with cold reality at the welcome rally. He told them, settle down in the borderlands, take root here, do great things for the people of Xinjiang, and bury your bones at the foot of the Tianshan. Before he finished, chaos erupted below. They had assumed military service meant returning home to Hunan in a few years. Now they realized they could never leave. Many burst into tears on the spot. The oldest was 19, the youngest just 13. Taiwan political commentator Huang Pengxiao called this the largest-scale women's abduction case in Guinness World Records. Yet 1,000 Hunan women couldn't solve the problem. There were 200,000 single men in the Xinjiang garrison. Wang Zhen mobilized a second batch of 7,000 Hunan women. In 1951, over 2,000 nurses were recruited from East China for mid-level officers, plus a group of widows from Shandong for lower ranks, many whose husbands died in successive wars. Later, to settle older soldiers from nationalist units that had defected, Wang Zhen arranged through then Shanghai Mayor Chen Yi to bring in 920 reformed prostitutes from Shanghai. By 1954, when the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps was established, women made up roughly 40% of personnel, essentially achieving one wife per man. A bitter folk rhyme captured their fate. Marriage law, oh marriage law, men at 40, girls at 18, run to Xinjiang to find daddy. Match to husbands, not fathers, bear sons and daughters, root here forever. Many high school graduates in their prime were forcibly paired with men 30 or 40 years older with zero emotional foundation. One woman who rejected a battalion commander's advances was shot dead on the spot. The officer was later executed by military tribunal, but the incident left deep trauma. Another Hunan woman, assigned to an older cadre with 3 children who was over 20 years her senior, went insane on her wedding day. Now back to 2026 reality. Why, in an era of drones, AI and advanced warfare, is Xi Jinping's Central Military Commission dusting off Wang Zhen's 70-year-old marriage stabilization playbook? This seemingly warm opinion conceals a brutally pragmatic political calculus. With senior ranks undergoing massive purges and grassroots morale wavering, Xi is attempting to buy final loyalty by shackling troops through women's bodies and family ties. This isn't just a matchmaking document, it's a political sacrifice using women as bargaining chips. Xi understands clearly, to keep lower ranks loyal amid the terror of political cleansing, the cheapest and most effective method is to give them a vulnerability, a hostage, a family that roots them permanently in the borderlands. In Xi's ongoing purge of PLA senior leadership, especially the dramatic upheavals in the Rocket Force and Defense Ministry since last year, the timing of this document is exquisitely suspicious. Military stability operates on 2 levels, loyalty at the top, appeasement at the bottom. While Xi makes generals paranoid through anti-corruption and political vetting, he must prevent the gun barrels at the base from rebelling amid upper-level chaos. That's why the PLA Daily calls this a practical step to enable troops to focus single-mindedly on army building. In plain terms, it's emotional bribery targeting the rank and file. History repeats with eerie consistency. A key historical note: in 1950, Second Army Political Commissar Wang Enmao relayed promises from Peng Dehuai and Wang Zhen at an internal meeting, bluntly telling soldiers, "I don't believe anyone doesn't want a wife and kids." He even outlined priority queuing, over 31st, then 28, 29, finally 25. This logic, treating women and reproduction as strategic resources to allocate, remains crystal clear 75 years later. Back then, the slogan was, "No wife, no peace of mind, no son, no roots." Today's opinion uses modern jargon like building a comprehensive, multi-layered marriage service system, but the core goal is still stabilizing military morale. Why does Xi do this? In a dictatorship, family is the ultimate soft hostage. A single, unattached young soldier is dangerous, impulsive, open to outside ideas, but once he marries and has children in a remote hardship post, he becomes a tethered social cell, not an independent fighter. He'll submit more readily out of fear of losing the organization-provided family perks. As one of the Hunan women, Jiang Lihua, summarized, the prettiest and most educated were typically assigned to higher-ranking older officers as organizational rewards for loyalty. Notably, this time the 6 issuing departments include the All China Women's Federation and Communist Youth League Central, echoing Wang Zhen's era when he requisitioned nurses from Chenyi, reformed prostitutes from Shanghai, and widows from Shandong. The administrative machine then packaged women as passionate youth defending the frontier, but really for pairing. Today, the CCP is again leveraging these organizations to scout nationwide for strategic assets for the military. With senior generals untrustworthy, Xi wants to nail grassroots soldiers to the land. Using wives to retain men isn't just about strengthening the army. It's about driving steel piles of family and blood ties into his power base during political turbulence. This isn't concern for soldiers' happiness. It's precise calculation of how to use women's fates to patch the massive loyalty fissures caused by political paranoia. If stabilizing military morale is Xi's immediate emergency fix, then addressing China's near-collapse demographic structure is the document's long-term strategic map. Consider the data. In February 2026, the latest Ministry of Civil Affairs figures show that last year's marriage registrations rose about 10% technically, thanks to lifted regional restrictions, no need for hukou books, and nationwide processing. But this masks a bottomless demographic abyss. With urban young women increasingly choosing to lie flat and treating non-marriage, non-childbearing as final resistance, the CCP's most relied upon force, the military, is becoming a demographic desert island. The opinion mentions cultivating a new marriage and childbearing culture. Loaded words. It recalls Peng Dehuai telling soldiers, "If you all stay bachelors, who will carry on our cause? Land reclamation needs successors." In CCP logic, the army isn't just a fighting force, it's required to be a self-sustaining production system. Sending the 8,000 Hunan women to the Tian Shan was essentially to seed Han bloodline strongholds along barren frontiers, achieving demographic blood transfusion. 75 years later, Xi faces the same, or worse, demographic threat. The military concentrates males most extremely with the worst gender imbalance. If millions of prime-age soldiers can't marry, it risks severe morale collapse and deprives the regime of its most loyal breeding reserve. Hence the matchmaking platforms and deepened marriage family services, a last-ditch mobilization targeting the armed forces. Bluntly, the CCP wants to use the military's closed, highly organized enclave to forcibly revive early marriage and early childbearing in marginal areas where it has already failed in cities. Wang Zhen's Reclaim and Defend Borders relocated masses of women inland to develop Xinjiang. Now, womb frontierization is being revived. Through soft incentives, job placements, family employment, happy, warm environments, authorities lure women into military marriage systems in remote regions. In 2026's economic downturn and job scarcity, this sugar-coated stable life policy holds deceptive appeal for women from resource-poor areas. But history has already answered. Many of those enthusiastic Hunan women ended up widowed in middle age, never returning home. As one film critic wrote on Weibo, this reflects an icy mindset treating women as objects, wrapped in sweet, noble calls to make them comply, no matter how cruel the decisions. This isn't solving soldiers' loneliness. It's seeking fall guys for a population policy on the brink of failure. Xi isn't just buying current loyalty. He's buying future offspring to keep the vast stability machine running along that blood-red Tian Shan line. Mark Twain said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." Standing in 2026, looking back at the deliberately buried story of the 8,000 Hunan women, and now this Sixth Department opinion, we see not mere rhyme, but a suffocating cycle. From Wang Zhen's 1950s command to bury your bones at the foot of the Tian Shan to Xi's heartwarming benefits under strong army thought, spanning 3/4 of a century, the CCP's obsession with power hasn't changed, nor its anxiety over frontiers. Most chillingly, the institutional logic of viewing women as tools, as supplies, remains unaltered. Back then, those Hunan women, lured by defend the motherland and beautiful lives, had dreams and talents discarded like trash, reduced to childbearing machines. Today, under dual blows of senior military upheaval and demographic freefall, Beijing dusts off the old script. It reveals a harsh truth. In an authoritarian regime's eyes, individual happiness, emotions, and dignity are forever consumables for the greater picture. When the state needs military stability, women are rewards. When it needs population, wombs are factories. As that film critic warned after digging into history, we must stay vigilant against policies and calls wrapped in happiness, sweetness, and nobility. History shows that once you're swayed by grand narratives and surrender autonomy, you may end up like the elderly Hunan woman Tao Xianyun, crying all the way from Changsha to Lanzhou, never able to return home. Implementing this opinion might buy Xi short-term grassroots loyalty and add infant cries to border wastelands. But a strong army dream built on deception and exploitation of women has rotten foundations. Remember, cherish and protect your body because it's the sole vessel of your free soul. In the storm of grand narratives, only vigilant defense of individual rights stands as our final bulwark against history's tragedies repeating.